Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday, January 4th, 2021. We have a very interesting weather pattern unfolding for the eastern part of the nation for the month of January. We have an ongoing stratospheric warming event, a continuation of some of the trends that we've seen in recent days in terms of the teleconnection indices. Specifically, the Arctic Oscillation, the North Atlantic Oscillation remain in negative territory. All of these tend to point to high latitude blocking situation over the next few weeks that will become kind of an increasingly important factor, and a overall cold and stormy weather pattern that looks like it'll bring multiple threats of snow to the mid-Atlantic region and the northeast U.S. over the next few weeks. We have one system we'll monitor at the end of this week on the Friday night time frame. Very well could head out to sea and stay south of the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor, but it certainly something we'll have to monitor over the next few days. And another threat, perhaps a better threat for some wintry precipitation, let's say around next Tuesday or so, January 12th timetable. And again, the overall weather pattern shaping up looks quite active, quite interesting, increasingly cold for the eastern U.S. as we go through the month of January. This is a look ahead here. What we're looking at to start off this video discussion is a forecast map from yesterday's ensemble run of the European model for January 18th, 2 weeks from today. And it's quite a favorable weather pattern for cold and stormy conditions in the eastern part of the U.S. Doesn't mean it's going to evolve exactly this way, but certainly a lot of signals are pointing to a cold and stormy weather pattern with multiple threats of snow for the mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. as we go through January. Again, this is 2 weeks from now, the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast map. First of all, this is almost classic high latitude blocking that it looks like it'll set up. And again, all of this is related with the stratospheric warming event that is ongoing right now. The negative NAO is suggesting we'll have some sustained high latitude blocking right in here. This is really kind of what you typically see with a sustained negative North Atlantic oscillation. You get this kind of high latitude blocking, and that basically ends up as a cold air source for the northeastern part of the nation. You get some cold air that will be able to push down from Canada into the northeastern part of the nation. At the same time, the means show quite an impressive upper level trough in the east central part of the nation here. Again, this is 2 weeks out, looking at the ensemble mean pattern here. Notice also out in the western part of the U.S. and the west coast of Canada, we have a ridge that starts to form right in this region right here. And look at the wind flow here. And this tells you that a lot of cold air will be able to push down from northwestern Canada into the central U.S. and ultimately into the eastern U.S. with this ridge popping up along the west coast of Canada, the west coast of the U.S. So a very favorable upper air pattern 2 weeks out. Again, this is where we may be headed as a combination of an impact from the stratospheric warming, high latitude blocking, very likely to set up here across Greenland, northeastern Canada, and all of that increases the chance for cold air outbreaks to make it from the northern part of Canada into the central and eastern U.S. It increases the chance for coastal storms. What you get is this cold air that pours down from Canada into the northeast U.S. and you kind of set up a natural temperature gradient right along the coastal region here. We still have the relatively warm waters of the western Atlantic, and with cold air over the landmass, kind of set up this temperature gradient here, and that ends up being kind of a focus area for storms, in this case coastal storms, and that of course is something that snow lovers will love to see in the middle and latter part of January, as it's probably the best chance for accumulating snow in the places like the I-95 corridor region. So very favorable overall weather pattern as depicted by yesterday's ensemble run of the European model. Now let's kind of come back in time to this Friday. Previous map, which by the way comes from weathermodels.com, was for 2 weeks out. This is for this Friday, January 8th, and very interesting setup here. Still unclear as to how far north this particular system will go. It looks like Friday there'll be a storm system over the Carolinas, and whether it heads out to sea from there or creeps up along the coast and has an impact on the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor, still a little too early to tell for sure. This is the upper level system associated with that Friday storm system that again should be over the Carolinas. And look at all this blocking here, high latitude blocking at the end of the work week, and even a little sign here of what we call a 50-50 upper level low right in this region right here. That tends to be something that's kind of a favorable pattern for snow in the mid-Atlantic region. Call it 50-50 low because it generally can set up around 50 degrees latitude and 50 degree west longitude right in this region right here. So this is something we'll have to watch closely over the next few days as to whether or not this storm system ends up going out to sea or can make its way up the coast a little bit farther than the models are depicting right now. But kind of a general characteristic is that coastal storms tend to evolve a little bit farther to the north and west as you get closer and closer to the event time. Now, even if it does come farther north up the coast, it's not a guarantee for snow in the I-95 corridor region. The air mass that will be around at the end of the work week will be marginally cold, like it has been for the past couple of storms, primarily rain events in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. We've had 2 different storms over the last 3 or 4 days. Snow inland, higher elevation locations, generally rain. There's been a bit of snow and sleet at times in the I-95 corridor region. And this late week system will also only have marginal cold air to deal with, but it's something we'll closely monitor. Again, as I said up front, it looks like increasingly cold air masses will be able to penetrate into the U.S. from Canada as we progress through the month of January. Well, the teleconnection indices remain in negative territory with respect to the Arctic Oscillation, the North Atlantic Oscillation. Generally insinuates maybe a cold and stormy weather pattern with some chances for snow in the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast U.S. We've also been monitoring an ongoing stratospheric warming event, and this is how it looks right now, as of today, over the northern hemisphere in terms of the stratospheric temperatures, way up at the top of the atmosphere, the 10 millibar level. And here's the North Pole right here, kind of a top-down view. The North Pole right in this area right here. Here's the U.S. and very significant warming right now over the pole. And when I say stratospheric warming, this is not actually warm air. It's all relative. Look at the legend here. This is right in this territory here, minus 25 degrees, but that is substantially warmer than it was a week ago. And so we call this stratospheric warming, even though the actual temperature is still very, very cold. It's a significant warm-up relative to normal. Normally we have this cold polar vortex sitting over the North Pole, but this has been not only displaced, a piece of it is displaced southward into the U.S., but another piece of it displaced off to the Asian side of the European side of the North Pole here. So this is what could happen with a stratospheric warming event. You can get a displacement of the polar vortex, or even a breaking into kind of separate vortices. And in this particular case, this is the pattern we're seeing right now, and typically have an impact of maybe within a few weeks or even several weeks after a stratospheric warming event. Kind of shakes things up, and it generally results in cold air masses that have been bottled up over the polar region to be transferred down to the middle latitude. So again, this is a signal for kind of increasingly cold air masses to make their way into the central and eastern U.S. as we progress through the month of January. Well, let's kind of quickly walk through the surface forecast maps from last night's operational run of the GFS at 0Z. Low pressure, still a lot of residual moisture in the lower part of the atmosphere as we begin the new work week, as we begin the day on Monday. Hence, mostly cloudy skies, maybe a little bit of drizzle around, maybe even some freezing drizzle. Temperatures not all that far from the freezing mark. This slowly pulls away, and the next weather maker is this cold frontal system showing up on the maps here Tuesday morning. Has some rain and snow shower activity with it. There certainly can be a rain or snow shower in the I-95 corridor region during the day on Tuesday into Tuesday evening as this next cold frontal system pushes in. Then on Wednesday, high pressure generally takes over for Wednesday and Thursday, and it's at that point that we'll monitor the movement of another storm system. This has a lot of support in the upper part of the atmosphere right now. This is the Friday morning forecast map. It'll be situated over the Carolina coastline come Friday. Whether or not it ends up pulling up the coast is still a little too early to say. It could stay just to the south and east of the I-95 corridor region and head out to sea, but it's a close call. Something to monitor. The GFS has it maybe having some impact on the Delmarva Peninsula, the southeastern part of New Jersey, with rain and or snow come Friday evening. Very close call. Certainly cannot write it off. Once that goes on by, we have another system that may be a little bit more of a chance. Now, the GFS actually has it cutting up to the north and west of the I-95 corridor region. We're talking about next Tuesday of next week. We're a little more than a week away. This has an interesting look to it, though. I think there's a good chance it ends up going farther to the south and east, what the GFS has right here. This has a rain event for the Mid-Atlantic region, but if it cuts farther to the south and east, and I think it very well could be a very interesting setup for around next Tuesday, January 12th. So an interesting weather pattern shaping up for the month of January. We have one threat to monitor at the end of this week, maybe Friday night time frame. Could head out to sea, could turn up the coast. We'll have to monitor that. And then perhaps another threat in around a week or so, maybe a week from tomorrow, next Tuesday, January 12th. But we'll have more threats, it appears, going through the month of January. That's it for now. For PerspectiveWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.